What are we talking about here?
I do want to try and connect some non-reductionist theory to what are some actual real on-the-ground situations and worldviews.
Do any of you know anyone you would consider at Teal level?
How can we really tell if somebody is second tier or not?
The difference between people in first tier and people in second tier.
This graph is actually from the Integral Life website. And on this same page, they're even talking about telepathy. Get that out of here.
Still too green. They're really coming from motivations of green-driven values, not turquoise values. Explain to us when it's actually a turquoise person.
Yes, of course,
Yeah.
I would love to talk about this.
Great.
What's up? I am David Long, and welcome to the monthly Patreon participant Q&A. What's up? I am David Long. You guys know what it is. It's Q&A number 3, here today with Kai, Sal, and Michael. As per usual so far, you guys really need to support on Patreon and join up and get involved in this Q&A. If you haven't done that yet, consider doing it because we're having a great time here without you. So come get involved. Okay, so as we know, this is the favorite internet show, internationally known, world-renowned. Got people from all over the globe involved on this thing. Man, it's amazing, and it's just getting better and better. All right, first up, we got the man, the myth, the legend, the photographer, the video editor, Kai. How you doing, buddy?
Doing pretty good.
Do you have any questions for me today?
I do want to try and connect some non-reductionist theory to what are some actual real on-the-ground situations and worldviews that people will produce for themselves because the world is kind of terrible and there's just not a whole lot that it's really doing for them. And something I've seen recently is that a lot of the black pill community that dives deep down into nihilism, they're almost unreachable at this point. Once they're there, there's just no really getting that person back. So like my question would be like, what would be a way that you could talk to somebody that's in these spaces? There are definitely people where it's like, give them another 3 to 5 years. And if they don't really have help, where are they going to be ending up? How can we use non-reductionist theory to really kind of like talk to a person to at least set them on a path where they don't fixate, let's say, on these other less than positive modalities and worldviews?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Well, one thing is we can start by agreeing with them and affirming them on some of their insights and understandings. Certainly, there's truth in a nihilistic perspective. There's no inherent meaning or purpose in the cosmos. Such a thing is something that we have to create. And certainly, there's a lot of things that are fucked up in the world. So you can start by sympathizing with a lot of the things that they're seeing and being like, you're not crazy. I'm not going to deny a lot of your foundational premises here. However, in some ways, things are getting better. In some ways, progress has been made. And there are people like us, who are caring deeply about the world's problems. And we do have plans and ideas and are working on things to try to do things to make things better. For right now, our impact is small, but a lot of the things that people are seeing are the negative things, the things that they see on TV, on the news, the stuff that we're doing behind the scenes, the stuff that we're thinking about, the stuff that we're working on, the stuff that we're planning, the work that we're doing is not on the news.
No.
You don't know about it. So just because you don't know about it and you don't hear about it doesn't mean that nobody's working on trying to help. So I would probably start there and be like, what we can do is we can try. We can do work to honor things in a sacred way and put in effort. And we do know that progress is possible both on a large scale, on a collective scale, and in terms of personal development of individuals.
Yeah.
Change happens, people make progress, people mature, people grow, people can do better. So we shouldn't lose hope and we should keep trying, even if things are already fucked. We should still try. We should try until we can't try anymore. I don't know how much that's going to be effective to some of these people who are really in dark places, but at least it's honest. We're not denying a lot of the issues that they're seeing and concerns that they have. So we just want to start by making them feel less alone, not gaslighting them, making sure that they know that they're not crazy, that their concerns are valid, and that there are people who are working on it, and we shouldn't lose hope yet, and that we could talk about some of the things that are being done to try to help.
I think that's great. It's realistic. It meets them where they're at. One of the biggest issues is they just feel completely isolated. And so to be able to be like, look, I can build this bridge with you. I can meet you right where you're at. Yeah, things seem bleak, things seem ridiculous, but at least we know that there's people out there that are doing things that are actually trying to make the world come together and imbue it with some meaning. And yeah, it's going to be hard. It's something that nobody really asked for, but something that we got to face anyway since we're here. And since we're here, face it head on until you can't anymore.
Yeah, I'm also going to ask Michael to chime in.
He's putting something in the chat.
So I don't know much about the black pill community, to be honest. So I'd like to know a little bit more about what that's specifically sort of nihilistic about. But having talked even with like the alt-right and plenty of other people who often have a somewhat nihilistic point of view, most of it is that they're worried about things like overpopulation. And I can understand we're inundated with stuff online and movies and all sorts of things. But actually, we're past peak birth rate and our population will naturally stop at the 10 to 12 billion mark. We just need to go, okay, that's the challenge. How do we make sure that we're sustainably supporting 12 billion people? And in fact, there are countries like South Korea that are below the replacement rate. And in a few generations' time, they may collapse because there's just not enough of them. So there's this weird dichotomy that people are like really worried about overpopulation, but that's not as much of a problem as people realize it is. The resource usage per person is probably the bigger issue, and we have ways of being able to deal with that. But if you're trying to help a specific person, street epistemology or deep canvassing, which is usually a case of you talking to them, you're empathizing with them. What you can do is ask, how much do you believe this? And if it's a 7 out of 10 or lower, then you can ask them, why don't you believe it more? And that meta process of them thinking about what are the reasons that I don't truly believe in it can start them thinking and start them understanding that there's problems. And often automatically you come back a month or two later and they will be a 5 out of 10. Unfortunately, my dad doesn't believe that global warming is a problem. And in fact, there's a coming ice age and whatever else. I'd actually have to get him into a different identity and a different community. So he identifies as an alt-right Trump supporter, even though he lives in Australia. He's gone down that conspiracy rabbit hole, and he has a community of people around him that are all in that together. And you'd actually have to bring him into a different community with different beliefs and get him to feel like I belong in this community. And that's a hard thing to do. It doesn't happen very often, but that's the other technique. Unfortunately, I just can't find a community. And I'm not living in the same country as him, so I can't interact with him enough to really go through that process.
Well,
But
it's good to know
those
that Australians want to make America great again.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that.
So,
With something like this, I would always engage with people's ideas in a very rational way. And my friend Kevin, he used to tell me the way that people work, it's like they have this tiny rational rider on top of this big emotional elephant. And he's like, you got to move the elephant. Probably, I'm guessing, with some of these black pill people, I wonder how much it's really about the ideas that they're talking about and how much there might be something more underneath. So I would ask something like, let's say these things that you're worried about weren't a thing. Would you still feel negative about the world? I would try to see if there's actually something deeper.
Yeah.
See if what they're saying at the surface, these rationalizations, are actually even really the thing. That guy you're talking about from street epistemology, he does that too. He's like, well, let's say that that's not a thing. Would you still believe? Sometimes you got to dig a little bit deeper, and maybe what you'll find is actually they're just a sad and depressed person. I mean, maybe not.
I really do think that if they had a better North Star to direct themselves towards, that they would actually find that meaning. Because I think they are looking for that meaning. But like when they look at culture and what we're presented with, it's just like, I mean, they're right. It doesn't have a whole lot to offer in terms of any kind of meaningful pursuit, which is why art and philosophy and psychology and all these different topics are really important, because they open you up to whole new communities that connect you, like what Michael is saying, that could help you change how you identify with yourself. So you're not identifying with the system of our culture, but you're identifying with the actual people, where you can actually begin to empathize and make new friends and build new ideas. So this was great. I'm glad that you brought up street epistemology, because I don't think about that all that much when I engage with more atheistic people. Usually it's more with Christians and religious people. But I think that at this point, the black pill community, or just people who are wondering where's the meaning in life, they need this more than ever. They really do.
And you know, we actually have a lot of solutions and tools to a lot of the problems already. It's not like we don't know what to do. We actually do know what to do. It's just a matter of getting it in place. A lot of times people think about things as if this is how things are always going to be. They take change for granted. We've seen even in our lifetime, especially if you're my age, if you think about how technology has changed the world, just think about like recently, how big of an impact AI has had, how fast it's growing, and how fast it's changing things. things are not going to stay the same. People take things for granted. People take the fact that things are going to change for granted. They think things are going to stay the same. But actually, a handful of things can change and change everything forever. It's just going to take some time. And who knows? A lot of people are really afraid, like, AI is going to take my art job. But it could be the case that AI might be one of the things that actually helps to save humanity. It really could.
Yeah, people like to focus on the negative aspect of the thing, but the positives of like AI is if you're just a regular person in life, you have access to basically be able to ask any question and set yourself up in ways that you never would have been able to.
One of the things that I want to do, a lot of these AIs, they have projects where you give it documents and then it can use that information to generate other content. I want to work with AI to create the document that you give to your AI, and now your AI knows non-reductionism. So now it can generate stuff and make judgments and do all this stuff in the context of being informed by non-reductionism. Part of the problem currently is that the AI is programmed by green postmodernists, but we can teach AI that non-reductionism is a better perspective, not only on our personal computers, but to get that information out where AI can access it in general. That could be a huge game changer.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff that I was thinking about 5 years ago, not even thinking about AI, because AI wasn't really around yet. We had other plans about how we were going to fix stuff. So it's like we don't even necessarily know what the tools will be yet and how we can be able to engage with them to be able to change stuff. Still, a lot of that is just emerging. We'll flex flow through it, and we'll use these new tools and this new technology to help us improve and make things better continuously.
Word. Yeah, I'm liking that. I appreciate that.
Word.
Did you watch the Jordan Peterson versus? How'd you feel about that?
So many contradictions. First, he's appealing to deontological moral logic, being like, I would never lie. Never, not even to save a life, no. And you would have to make so many mistakes to be in the moral position where you might have to lie to save someone's life. And then and then later he's talking to someone else about a just war. He's like, well, do you think that maybe sometimes war might be justified? It's like, so wait a second. You wouldn't lie to save someone's life, but you want to talk about a morally just war or a just genocide? Interesting how these hard and fast, black and white deontological moral rules apply to us. But when it comes to God commanding people to do genocide, it's like, well, I don't know.
Who are we to say? I guess we got to do it.
He gets so caught up in dishonest, bad faith communication and retreating into this weaselly semantics. And one of his rules for life, remember, is to be precise in your speech.
Precise in your language. That was the thing that I noticed time and time again with every single person he talked to. They tried to pin him on actually answering a question, and he never would. He would always like, oh, well, I would need to explain a bunch of things over here, and I'd explain a bunch of things over here, and he dances around. But it was really interesting to see how when you have your own show, you can just say whatever you like with no pushback and just kind of get people on your show that will hedge what you're trying to say. And it makes it seem like you're an authority and you know what it is you're talking about. But put them in a room with a bunch of people who are like, yeah, no, I'm actually looking for any kind of semblance of truth here, any kind of ground, and even just the basic ground I'm trying to get at. You literally can't even answer that. And it's obvious that you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, he got wrecked. And let's remember, Ken Wilber went on Rebel Wisdom and did all those talks about how Jordan Peterson is integral.
And so if you're somebody like Jordan Peterson who is thinking integrally and you're looking around and seeing what the hell's going on, and then the government comes along and says, oh, and by the way, I'm going to compel your speech, that would send anybody with integrity and integral thinking over the wall.
But that's not really what happened.
Peterson began to go in public and make all these outlandish claims. Due to Peterson's misrepresentation of the bill, the Canadian Bar Association actually had to come out and write a letter debunking the things Peterson was claiming.
Jordan Peterson, who is thinking integrally.
Let's remember that.
Right.
So,
shameful.
If you haven't seen my video about that, that's a really good one. Is there anything else you want to talk about, Kai?
Those are my questions. Those are the things I wanted to bring up.
The black pill and Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, it's on my heart right now.
Thanks so much for your questions, Kai. Kai is living art. He is an artifact of greatness, a living legend. I'll be coming back around the mountain to you, man.
Word.
When she comes.
Yeah, when she comes. I'll be waiting.
All right, Sal, you're next. Sal, coming around the mountain when she comes.
Who's she?
I don't know, Dear Liza or something? Maybe that's a different one.
I don't know what's that.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt. Just one moment. I'd like to talk to you real quick about Patreon. So for a long time, what I used to do is I would just ask for your support on Patreon. I'd put your name at the end of the video, give you a big thank you, and call it good. But I've been putting more thought into how I can bring more value to my awesome Patreons who support this important project. For those of you who still want to do the basic amount of support, we have the supporter tier. You can give $5 or $10, and it'll be the same deal as before. I'll put your name at the end of the video, give you a big thank you and a shout out, and we'll call it good. But for those of you who are looking for more, who want to dig in deeper, we have the participant level Patreons. They'll get the same thing as before, but they'll also get to come to this live Q&A. And if you want to become a participant plus, you'll get to do all those things, come to the live Q&A, and come to a monthly private training. And for those of you who really want to dig in deep, join at the apprentice level. Get everything we've mentioned before, as well as an hour or two a month with me for private coaching or training or whatever you'd like. I know there's a lot of people on the internet right now who are asking you to become their Patreon, but remember, this is a small community, and so your support is much needed and much appreciated. Big thanks to all the people who support on Patreon. It really means a lot to me, and it's going to make a lot more possible going forward. Thanks so much for listening to me talk about Patreon. I'll let you get back to your video now.
Do you have any kind of questions for me today?
I have questions that relate to this ability of us to decide who's integral or not, like Jordan Peterson, but obviously it's not about integral, it's about second tier inspired dynamic sense. How can we really tell if somebody is second tier or not?
Right.
Like what kind of practice we can run them through, what proof or something that they can provide us from an non-reductionism perspective.
How can we tell if a person is second tier?
Mm.
Well, the difference between people in first tier and people in second tier is the people in first tier have a one true way type of perspective. Even people at Green think that there is one true way to do things, like don't judge and love everyone and absolutely no absolutes and all that. And they'll try to put that on everybody. People in second tier understand developmental context and they engage in that kind of developmental context. They don't just have one way of doing things. They have a way of doing things that is dependent upon the context and the situation and the people who they're engaging with. Green values being authentic. The values in second tier are more about being skillful and appropriate. And so that's context dependent.
Mm.
But the other thing I want to say is that we need to be careful from a non-reductionist perspective to not call the stages meta theory brand names.
Mm.
So when we talk about yellow, we should be talking about personal integration. I think it's fine to talk about integration or integrative or holistic or synthesis. Non-reductionism is in particular a theory. So when we say that we're taking a non-reductionist view, it's an approach to development at this stage through this philosophy in particular. Not everybody who is yellow is a non-reductionist. Integral, metamodern, non-reduction, those are brand names. I think it's still going to take a little bit of time. When I talk to a lot of people, even people who are very sympathetic and interested to a more non-reductionist perspective as opposed to an integral perspective, we'll still sometimes call yellow integral. It's going to take a little bit of time for us to change our languaging and change some of our ideas about some of this stuff, but it'll happen.
So yeah, exactly that. I also know that I need to do some brand shifting. It's not just a brand shifting, it's like knowledge shifting. Like one thing I was thinking about is how can people, they call themselves integralists, do they actually understand what it means to be yellow and what it means to be turquoise? I do believe these are still tier 1 green people who would for some reason think they're turquoise. Can you comment on maybe why? Because what I think is they're still too green, like the value line, like if you test their values, they're really coming from motivations of green driven values, not turquoise values. And if you would explain to us when it's actually a turquoise person.
Yes, of course,
Yeah.
I would love to talk about this.
Great.
So in order for us to be able to create a healthy yellow community, it's got to be rooted in turquoise values. The difference between yellow and turquoise is the difference between personal and collective integration. So we really are trying to do some collective integration. The way that you can tell who actually even knows what turquoise is, if a person can walk you through the stages and tell you how, if you push in deep enough to every stage, then you can inevitably find yourself in the next stage. I'll talk about from green to yellow and yellow to turquoise, and then we'll get some kind of an understanding. And then we can talk about why it goes wrong and why people are confused about it and why the community ends up being unhealthy. So when they moved from blue to orange, they shifted their perspective from a traditional kind of view to a more science-centered, a more rational view. And this gets you more into a naturalistic perspective. And then if you push into that deeper, if you push into science deeper, you get into sociology and psychology. So the care gets extended further into care for the environment and a care for other cultures after you've already extended your care to all humans. The move from blue to orange goes from nationalistic or creedal we space, like people in my tradition, people in my nationality, that's the level of my care. But then when you move from blue to orange, it's like all humans, democracy, all men are created equal. That and the science thing is the beginning of now having to struggle with the fact that I am a white Western man. And so if I really want to extend my care to all beings and I want to really understand my place in nature as it relates to science, well, then I really got to bracket a lot of my conditioning. This is what they call ego, the traditional and modern conditioning that I've received that give me this white man entitled perspective that doesn't understand the plight of people in other cultures or doesn't understand the cultural impact. So I have to chill on my judgments because they're preconceived ideas that are not necessarily fair. And I really need to spend more time to understand what's really going on with these people in these other cultures or with other animals in the environment. So as my extension of care grows, part of the spiritual practice at Green is to be here now with it, to listen, to not immediately judge based on these preconceived notions, to try to understand things better. And what naturally happens if you're trying to extend care to all these things and you really spend the time to understand is that new insights and perspectives come online. You start to see, if I really care about these people in these situations, I can't just continue to create a false equivalency. There are some people who are victims in this situation and some people who are oppressors in this situation, and I can't treat them both equally. There's developmental maturity happening here. Some people are better in some lines than other lines. There are different personality types and different learning styles, and all these things need to be honored in their own way. And this was what people weren't really understanding before when they were just applying these naive universals on people in an unskillful way. So that's how you actually get from this person who has this universal care to a person who wants to really develop these tools to be able to be more skillful in caring at yellow. And then yellow ends up being more of a personal kind of integration. People at yellow, they start by favoring certain perspectives or tools or ideas that were the thing that helped them to get into this beginning integrative space. Like some people really like Buddhism, and then they'll mix it with other things, like Wilber style, favoring and conflating things to Buddhism. Other people like Steve McIntosh, he comes from a more Christian perspective, so he kind of favors that, and he sort of integrates in these other things, but really still holds on tight to the Christianity stuff. So the integration is still personal. And even when Wilber will sell integral to Green, which is kind of what they're doing, they go, well, everybody's right. Everyone has a piece of the truth. And Green's like, yes. And then the other thing that he'll say is, you're already doing a lot right. We just want to give you a couple extra little tools, and then you'll have a more holistic perspective. They're basically opening the doors, inviting people in, and being like, yes, bring your biases with you. All we need to do is just add a couple little tools, and then you'll be integral. They've said well, you got this, you got this, you got this, you got this, and you got this. So now you're integrating.
You can integrate all the fantasies you want. But it doesn't bring you truth.
But they haven't talked about any of the overarching standards for integration. There's not meta perspective on rules of integration or how to honor these things or what a recipe is for these things. People who are actually doing personal integration, a lot of them are working on themselves. I need to become more integrative in terms of my own personal integration. And a lot of them are also still okay, well, I'm going to have my integrative life practice. I'm going to have my integrative approach to business. I'm going to have my integrative this and my integrative that. All these are translations or hacks into the system as it currently is, because as of right now, they're just an individual, an integrative personal individual in a context that is non-integrative. And so a lot of what they're trying to do is just do it themselves. This is also where they start doing translation, meeting people where they're at developmentally and engaging with people where they're at developmentally. And this is major progress over just being and just loving. Right now, they're actually meeting them and they know, okay, well, this is what it might mean to be actually healthy at the stage that you're at. These are the healthy things and these are the unhealthy things. So let's try to push you more towards the healthy things, or like get you more in touch with all four quadrants, or like work with your translation, or maybe even if you're ready, we could engage with you in a way that might help you to move to the next stage or plant seeds or something. So they're doing this kind of like skillful meeting people. Do this long enough, and here's what will start to happen. You'll start to be like, man, what I'm really seeing is I'm working with these people, and a lot of them are already messed up. They're already traumatized by the current systems. They already had all these developmental problems before they ever came to me. And I'm just trying to help them and fix them on the back end of all of these problems that they've already had. And then in a community of other people who also understand development, what we also start to understand is it's actually the first stages of development that are the most crucial and the most important. For example, you know how they say if you don't learn how to read by the time you're this age, you'll basically never learn how to read. It's like that with early stages of development too. Like in the first stages of development, one of the first lessons that we learn is about love, how to love and how to receive love. And that when you cry as a baby that someone's coming, you're not alone, that someone's going to come for you, that the world is not this harsh place. And a lot of what we look for in people is more about openness and honesty and courage, not necessarily what stage of development that you're at, but like, do you have a healthy, growth-minded relationship to learning that's going to help you to progress no matter what stage you're at? Some of that stuff is coming online at Red. Do you have healthy Red online? Do you have the courage to be able to stand up for yourself? Do you have the courage to be able to step outside of the group and to go, no, this is what I think. I'm going to stand on this. Once you start to learn more about development and learn how crucial these early stages of development are, what you start to be like is we need to create a new system so we're not just dealing with people and trying to help them after they've already been fucked up by society. We need to create a healthy society to optimize human potential. We need to create a healthy religion that isn't superstitious and divisive, but brings on the best functions of religion in a healthy way. We need to create a new government that actually works to actually create justice. And so we don't just have to do these like hacks into things. Basically, what happens is you go from just this personal, individual, integrative person who's like translating in the world to being in a community of people who understand development, who are like, we will create new transformative systems that help the whole spiral and create healthy development for humanity that optimize human potential and create a healthy relationship with humans and animals and nature. We're going to optimize this whole thing, not just do tweaks and hacks within the context of these bad value systems. So you can tell the story that I'm telling is a natural progression based on an understanding of how one thing leads to the next thing. How if you continue to push in deeper and deeper, how these naturally unfold out of each other. The way that a lot of people think about turquoise stages and higher, you can tell that it's still coming from green. Because they still think what you'll ultimately be at turquoise is actually a mystic. Michael, he asked AI to do an assessment of me, and I went back and I asked it, what do you think turquoise is? And basically it answered and it said, turquoise. Turquoise is when you're embodied, when you use intuition, when you understand collective consciousness, when you get past trying to get involved in conflict and start appreciating unity, and when you are in the present moment. That is green. That is green. It's describing green. A lot of these people, they learn some of the distinctions at integral, but they really haven't, in terms of their values, really progressed actually into second tier. Like maybe cognitively, they've learned a lot of those distinctions, but a lot of them will start to tell you, it's like, yeah, but the map isn't the territory. And like, we learn the maps, but we just need to kind of bracket them and put them aside and then be here now. They regress back into green, and they still are thinking in terms of, oh, that's just social conditioning. That's just the ego. That's just these things. Like, we're supposed to bracket those maps and just be here now and really be embodied. They're still making a virtue of this sort of spiritual practice of bypassing responsibility. And it's as if they think that development is just a thing that is going to happen in its own time, in its own way, and it's every individual's responsibility to figure it out for themselves. It's also the reason why therapy isn't really that good, is because it's done by a lot of people with green values who think that if I just sit with you and be here now with you and let you talk and then reflect back to you a little bit, you'll figure it out on your own. but I'm not going to try to tell you why you're getting it wrong, or like how you can actually correct this problem and move into the next stage, or come up with a plan to help you with a more healthy integration. We'll just sit here. People at Yellow, they are engaged in personal development. They are engaged in their own personal development, and they want to meet other people and help them engage in their personal development. People in Turquoise are engaged in personal and cultural development. Engaged, like want to do something about it, are going to do something about it. Don't just expect that things will just happen. They will make things happen. And if you want to talk about being embodied in terms of knowing how to handle these tools, and I mean, of course, we can still be here in the moment and do all that kind of stuff, but like it's the real engagement in the context of a meta perspective that is the real marker of second tier. Coming back full circle, this is also the reason why it takes a turquoise perspective to actually create a healthy yellow community around meta theory, to even invite people. Because what we're really trying to do here is we're going to build a ladder. We're going to build a ladder from the top down. And so we're creating a turquoise community, a community of the adequate, of people who know the meta theory, and we're ultimately going to use it for personal and cultural development. And so we build a ladder down into Yellow. That's why one of the first things I'm doing is I want to develop courses, and I want us to be able to have a hierarchy within the community so we know what it means to actually be a leader in this space, because we need to actually maintain the integrity of our theory, the integrity of our culture. What actually has happened in a lot of the yellow spaces is they're so diplomatic and open and so inviting that they have no integrity in terms of maintaining their space. They have no standards or lines. They have no leadership. They have no hierarchy. Their values are still green. They may know some meta theory distinctions, but they are just smart sounding postmodernists. And it shows in the quality of their spaces and in the quality of their projects and in the quality of their thinkers. Does that answer your question in a very long-winded way, Sal?
Yes, David, long. But it was actually well said. Yeah, you kind of tapped into my feelings too about it, not just the answers I wanted to understand more about. So what I'm getting is that if somebody cannot explain how they are progressing, like what is the dialectic that they solved when they were green that pushed them to develop, to find that solution, if they cannot explain that to me, how can you even think you changed? You did not develop, you did not solve any dialectic, because that's what I understood about spiral dynamics. But these green people who think they're turquoise, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing any different way of either understanding or solving anything or even understanding what is the problem.
Right? And they like map stages and stages and stages higher, and it's all just like mega green, super green, ultra green, right? It's like
exactly, that's the thing.
At this stage,
like
you become like
horizontally.
That makes sense saying it's horizontal. It's like, yeah, but at ultraviolet or super clear, that's when you get the psychic powers. That's when you're 7D perspective. That's when you're in touch with the void in all times and like a super perfect love machine that just radiates. You're just describing what you wish you could be from some idealistic green perspective and projecting that on higher stages of development.
Hey, sorry to interrupt again. I don't know how much you looked at these ideas over here, but you might be thinking to yourself, a lot of these ideas look really blue or purple, like magical and mythical. Turquoise sees the world as alive and evolving. Everything's alive? Are we talking about panpsychism here? So if you're a turquoise, then you must be a panpsychic? Indigo is synchronicities and telepathy and psychic powers and sensing the field and going with what wants to happen. What are we talking about here? The field? What wants to happen? At Violet, you'll have spiritual visions and you'll perceive spiritual beings. At Ultraviolet, you'll experience nirvana. You'll finally have a nirvikalpa samadhi, the things Buddhists are trying to have down at Blue. No, you won't really achieve that until Ultraviolet. That's when you'll experience the void and unification with God, because God is void, right? And your personal self will be completely gone. You're one with God now, or you're pure emptiness or something like that. At Clear Light, you finally get the Shiva Shakti union, where God, I, and the world are all one. Samsara and Nirvana are experienced together as one taste. If you understand these things in a truly trans-rational way, if you understand the poetry and the metaphor divorced from the literal understanding of the tradition, you can understand these things down at green. People at blue are having a nervi kalpa samadhi. So this results in people lifting up these monks and these mystics as if they are actually at the highest stage of development. They are not. They are blue. So if the ideas here are blue, why are we saying that they're green? Well, because it's usually green, more new age green, unhealthy green, that starts to reject science and start to favor something like ancient wisdom. And so then they start elevating up these magical and mythical ideas as if they're the real, true, mature, enlightened ideas. This is called pre-trans confusion at green, and it's called a pre-trans fallacy at yellow. Pre-trans fallacy number 1 is usually committed by people at orange who try to reduce anything non-rational to pre-rational. And pre-trans fallacy number 2 happens when people elevate pre-rational, magical, mythical ideas as if they're the height of human development and maturity. So why do I keep saying these ideas are super green and ultra green? Because it's bad mishmash integration. It's not just blue, it's not just mythical ideas, it's also magical ideas. And it's green who buffet style takes all these fun ideas from all these places and mushes them together into some kind of incoherent, ridiculous, magical, mythical worldview.
You can integrate all the fantasies you want, but it doesn't bring you truth.
Of course, there are also the more healthy versions of green, which are usually expressed in a more existentialist philosophy or human rights activist. This new agey style is what I would consider to be a toxic and unhealthy, immature version of green. A lot of these people actually haven't really got the full deconstruction from blue to orange, or really even had a rational deconstruction of orange into green. They're culturally indoctrinated into green ideas, and they take them on in a blue, traditional conformist kind of way. So the style is green, but it's held in a blue way, and it's actually still pre-rational ideas. So a lot of these people who we're saying are green might not even really actually even be green. They're just presenting as green. Their actual altitude is probably somewhere late blue, early orange, meaning these people are magical, mythical, religious believers. They take those ideas literally, and they start to incorporate a little bit of cherry-picked science like an apologist to make it seem like they're more rational and their ideas are more justified than they are. I know that's a little bit confusing because I'm like, it's yellow, it's green, it's blue. It presents as postmodernist New Ager because that's the kind of culture that people are being raised in, but it's actually people conforming to that in a more blue kind of way. Anyways, I hope that makes sense. This graph is actually from the Integral Life website. And on this same page, they're even talking about telepathy. Get that out of here. Sorry for the interruption. Hope that didn't overcomplicate things too much. I'll let you get back to the video.
Stages and stages and stages higher, and it's all just like mega green, super green, ultra green, right? It's like, yeah, but at ultraviolet or super clear, that's when you get the psychic powers. That's when you're 7D perspective. That's when you're in touch with the void in all times and like a super perfect love machine that just radiates. You're just describing what you wish you could be from some idealistic green perspective and projecting that on higher stages of development.
Yeah, just wait till I get to be super ultraviolet, hyper green, clear. Then I'm gonna be like Jesus on acid in the future.
One of the things that Don Beck was super critical of Wilber on is this isn't about mysticism. These stages arise through real answers to life conditions. These things are the real natural solutions that arrive out of real life situations and scenarios. And they're not one particular biased cultural way of thinking about development through some mystical lens.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me with other talks I had with other people about biodynamics. Sometimes people who deal with struggles surprisingly end up the one developing more. Because maybe, just maybe, they were in circumstances that put them into more problems that they needed to solve more. Their brain needed to solve more things for them to survive.
Yeah.
So if you're in an orange society, maybe you don't even have that problem to even want to develop and be different. Yeah, you're not going to just develop meditating all day. It's really about going out in the world and try things and failing and experiencing different things, testing yourself and figuring out, oh, I don't actually know how to deal with this feeling or to deal with that thing or solve that problem or be extra moral or do the greater good unless I use this or think in this way. It's really very, very practical thing if you really want to develop. It's not really about all of these green stuff, woo stuff.
Yeah. Necessity is the mother of invention. And like you're saying, it makes sense when yellow tries to engage and tries to fix things and it learns more about development that it would figure these things out instead of just trying to work with people and create a new existential mystery school for people who are post-college or something. Maybe we should just create a healthy school, a healthy education system that actually does a good job from the beginning, and then we'll have less problems when we get up to this stage. The more you actually try to be a yellow teacher, a yellow coach, a yellow counselor, the more you start to see, oh man, I'm way late. These people are already very stuck in their problems and their types and their traumas. Also, part of the reason why people are particular types, it's not all nature. Some of it is nurture. Not only will the spiral change, the expressions of the spiral will change if we change the culture, but the types that are more prominent will change as well. The spiral is changing and the kinds of people that we're creating are changing. When a lot of people think about certain philosophical topics like free will versus determinism, they roll their eyes and they go, who cares about that? What's the practical value of that? But it's a big deal. Like when it comes to things like morality, a lot of people will argue like, well, if everything's determined, then how can you ask people to be good? Well, there's still reasons why we would ask people to be responsible, even if there's conditioning. In fact, if you're going to have good conditioning that's going to make people be good, you need to ask people to be responsible. But also in terms of the justice system, what a lot of times we end up doing is we go, oh, this person's a messed up criminal, throw them in jail. So basically what we end up doing is we end up scapegoating a lot of individuals and blaming the individuals when it's actually the society that has created a lot of this bad behavior through the systemic problems in the society. And they're not actually fixing any of the problems in the society to make better people. They're just sweeping certain people who they fucked up under the rug and blaming them like it's their fault. So actually, if we can create a better system, we can make better people, we can make better societies, and a lot of things would change. Individuals would change, the expression of the spiral would change, a lot of things would be different. That was a little bit of a tangent, but do you have any other questions, Sal? I think you get one more question.
Well, it's fine. I gave up my last question for Michael to start. Thank you, though.
Let's pass it to Michael now. How you doing, Michael?
Good. Do any of you know anyone you would consider at Teal level?
No. I think it's more aspirational.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're at that level where for me to feel like I can progress to the next, I want to restructure society. And that is a really, really big project. For people to have progressed past, it feels like they must have either have achieved enough or done some project.
I can't even really think of that many other people who I think are really healthy or really skillfully at turquoise, especially like across multiple lines. I think that there are people who are cognitively there. They can understand some of that stuff. Or even they might have some ideas or values about some things up there, but then like there's some cognitive stuff that's missing, like they don't have all the understanding of meta theory. Probably a lot of people in the zeitgeist community, they might value some kind of new transformative system, but they don't have all the cognitive tools to be able to really understand what's needed to actually to do that.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. I know a lot of the people in the zeitgeist movement, and I don't think there's nearly enough up the turquoise level.
Yeah, so it's really rare to even find people who are there. And honestly, my perspective on that is that it probably takes years, probably like 5, 10, 15 years of being at that level to really get to the point of something like effortless mastery with it. And I'm talking about really, really being engaged and working at that level for a long time to where you've seen and heard it all. You really have to get to the point to where it's like, yeah, I've dealt with this before a bunch of times. I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to do this and this and this, and that's what it is. And that's effortless mastery, is when you've actually had a lot of practice and you just already know what to do and you're going to do it, and it's not a big deal. There's not enough of us at that level to even have projects enough happening in the world for us to really even have the kind of experience to where we can get that kind of practice. Still just hypothetical, and it's going to be very difficult, I think, for anybody to ever get up there.
Yeah. That's been my main aim, is building stuff. Actually, I could do all these other iterations first and get the feedback and do all that before we get to that point. And I feel like a non-reductionist philosophy and this abundant mass stuff can work really well in tandem.
Yeah.
Because it's an application of those turquoise ideals. Let's actually work out, what does a new society from scratch actually look like? In the meantime, I think non-reductionist philosophy has so many useful things that can benefit people at different levels. Do you know the Crossing the Chasm content?
Yes, I am familiar
Jeffrey
with this.
Moore.
The early adopters, and also Malcolm Gladwell talks about this in his Tipping Point book.
There's the innovators, then there's the early adopters. Usually those early adopters will jump on because there is at least some value, but mostly because it's new. And then there's that early majority, this big chasm. And it's like, okay, why will people start putting effort into non-reductionist philosophy? And I think it's because it has value.
Yeah.
So it says early majority in this particular image, but usually you would see something like pragmatist, being pragmatic. I'm doing it because it has value. My question was, what will that value be for someone who's red, who's green, who's orange?
See, I don't think that being at these higher stages is going to be accessible like that. I think it would literally take a whole new society with a whole new set of values to be able to get adults up to these stages of development. The way that non-reduction will ever make an impact like this on this kind of a level is it'll be in the form of the movement that doesn't actually ask people to understand all these things. It'll just be offering an alternative in terms of the lifestyle. So it'll be the movement project that will actually be able to make a big impact like this, not so much the philosophy project.
Good answer.
If we redesign the new system, if we can create the new kind of society that we want to get, maybe we could create a system that would allow the average adult to get up into second tier. But in the current society, I don't see it.
Definitely not pushing the population percentage in any meaningful way up.
Yeah.
So what's to say? Turquoise is like 0.000009%.
Right. Really rare.
And it's just like, that's why there's 5 of us here.
Yeah. So
there's probably 20 people that we could be having this conversation with if we put some effort in. And there's probably a few thousand who would be at the level that are also able, if we really put a lot of effort into finding them.
Yeah. Honestly, I think the fact that I have like 2,000 YouTube subscribers is actually good. It doesn't seem like a lot in comparison to other YouTube channels, but given the content and the community and what I know about the demographics, that's a lot of them. There's more of them out there and more people would be sympathetic to it. But yeah, that's actually good numbers in the context, sadly enough. Imagine 2,000 people at late integrative early turquoise stages. That's a powerful group of people. If they can actually come together and get organized and do something, that group of people, 2,000 people, we could change the world. It's a big deal. That's why I reach out and I try to make connections and I respond to everybody. And I try to treat as many of them as possible as if they're important and serious people, because I feel like if you're really engaged in this kind of stuff and you're really interested in this stuff, you're probably a serious, very cool, very smart person and worth the investment.
There are also a whole bunch of different things that we're not including in the map. Love languages, the dark triad, the light triad.
Sure. It's not on the map explicitly, but it could be other valid typing forms.
Yeah. And it might be that we have the second map or a second page or something like that as like, here are these other things that other people have generated. It might not be the main focus, but these may be useful to you. So it could be something that gets listed somewhere.
Yeah.
Going back to the main question, it's knowing psychometric profiling about people, knowing about where you are. Some of these I know how we applying. How does understanding these things help change the dynamics of a conversation? Partly worried about manipulation, being like, well, people know that if they present things in this certain way, they're going to trigger certain responses. So how open should we be about these or not?
Definitely people at lower stages of development are more likely to be manipulated. But I think people at higher stages of development are more likely to manipulate people in positive ways. So I wouldn't say that manipulation is necessarily bad. When we're talking about personal and cultural engagement, we're basically talking about coming from a higher perspective and trying to manipulate people and cultures into being better. Maybe there's a better word that's less upsetting than manipulation, influence or something. I'm kind of down to just own it, because manipulation isn't bad if what you're trying to do is actually help the person. Manipulation is bad when you're trying to use another person to benefit yourself. Me trying to get something for me, not like me trying to help this person be more healthy for them. So I would make that kind of distinction. Part of the whole point of learning this stuff is to be able to engage with people in more skillful ways. For example, even like learning the theory of attachment. You could say that it's manipulative, but the whole point of learning something like that is so that way you can understand yourself better and understand your partner better and create a better relationship. Is that manipulative? I think it's just what we both want, right? And if you have kids, figuring out how to help with that and how to work with that. The attachment theory is really important for working on yourself and working on relationship. I think knowing your type is really good, and knowing the types of other people is really good for working on yourself and working on other people. And to be able to appreciate the fact that other people are different and have their own different strengths and values. Like, I'm not a peacekeeper. Actually, it's more of like a middle child thing. A lot of middle childs are peacekeepers. We need peacekeepers in the world. We need people who are like that. We also need people who are willing to shake shit up. We need both of those things. One without the other is a less good world. And 6, I'm not a 6. I'm not a fearful person. One of my closest friends is a 6, a loyal skeptic. And I love bringing projects to him. He can start to see all the potential problems with it. I really appreciate the fact that he's a doomsday prepper. While I'm thinking about how we can create a better world together, he's thinking about what we're going to do if shit hits the fan. And I'm really glad that I have him as a friend. And if shit hits the fan, I'm going to be reaching out to him first because he's prepared and he's ready. I'm not ready like that. Knowing types helps us to really appreciate these people and to know their gifts and their beauty and the wonderful things about them, and to know when's the time to call that person, and also when you'll probably end up being frustrated and annoyed with that person. For example, you and me trying to build this better world together, testing it against the 6 is going to be a good way to make it strong, but they'll probably never really get down on the project with us and be fully on board and invested and really believing that it's going to happen and it's going to work. Probably not. Maybe if you could get to the point where you really proved it, you get it up and going and it's happening, you could be like, see, then they'd be like, okay, maybe so. I'll come in and I'll be like security and I'll start prepping in the context of this new society that you're building. The peacekeeper, that person is more prone to be green. A lot of those people will value keeping the peace with people over trying to actually create healthy standards and virtues and integrity within a community. They'll end up protecting people and enabling people, and that can be a serious problem. So it's like, to know what the different strengths and weaknesses of the different types are and what things that they might be prone to, that's really helpful. And to know it about yourself too, to be like, well, I'm really good in this way. I'm not so good in this. Maybe I should not only appreciate that person, but maybe I should spend more time with them and see what kind of things I can recognize as ways that I can improve based on their perspective. They kind of become archetypes in your head, especially when you know them personally and they're your friends. You can almost imagine what they would say about certain things or how they would deal with certain things. Like Kai often tells me, I'll be doing something or working on something, and then I'll be like, yeah, if David was here, he would be saying this and that about it.
It's helpful because it helps me have a more solid eye on even my own work. For him, he's always on the standardization and the structure, and I'm more in like the aesthetic and the free flow creation of the thing. But after taking time and learning how he sees, how he engages with the world, and like really sitting in that and then bringing it into like what I'm just naturally already kind of good at doing, you definitely are able to take a step up from where you were at previously, when you can kind of start to see why things work for other people.
This is kind of like what modes are good for too. Different types prefer particular different modes. You're a flow-minded aesthetic person, but you can do that in the context of applying a particular system. It's not like they have to be in conflict with each other. They can be in concert with each other and they can help each other. And that's why different types work well together too. Certain combinations of different types can be really amazing. If you know what your type is and what a complementary type is, or like what types you're going to for sure clash with, all that stuff is really helpful. Stages and lines are really helpful too. Obviously, we are going to resonate with people who have our shared values and who are at our same stage of development. But there's different types at those stages too. So there's different ways of being at those stages. And there's a reason why a lot of people are really interested in types and are constantly talking about types and bringing everything back to types, is because it's a really helpful tool.
All those states and stages and lines and everything, that's all kind of theory. That's all kind of internal. But your type is how you actually interface with others in the world and your ideas and actualize things. Understanding type is really important because you can understand yourself in context to other people as you're trying to even do the thing you're even doing.
Earlier, I mentioned the elephant and the rider metaphor. A lot of times when I want to engage with people to help them move up through stages, I'm still thinking about it very much in terms of the cognitive line and the ideas, like, oh, this idea beats this idea. Like, I know this will like kind of work, right? And it's like, yeah, That's true, but also that might not be what motivates this type. And just talking about the rational stuff might not be necessarily the way to go. If we're really concerned with moving people and what works, I really do think that the future of us being way better at this stuff is going to be understanding how types move through different lines, through stages. And we currently just don't have that information yet. There's still a lot to be known about a lot of these things. Is there anything else you want to say before I pass it on, Michael? Oh my gosh, Michael's dust. Okay, Sal, I'm going to come back to you. I haven't heard your voice in a while. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Sal, is there anything else you want to say before we go? Overall thoughts about the talk?
I really liked it. I kind of enjoyed this format more. Looser questions, more open ideas. Even in some points, you were asking other people what they would want to say if they want to enter any important detail. So I think this Q&A is turning more into like community chat. And again, this is one of the reasons I really enjoy this, because this is my sense of social connection that is meaningful right now in this level or on these people in the society. So that's just a note for you that we all enjoyed that. What do you think? What do I think?
Yeah, I want it to be a little more chatty as well. I think that's good.
Thank you. I'm out.
Kai, how you doing, buddy? You have any last final thoughts or anything?
I agree with Sal. I like being able to jump to a couple different people so then we can get different perspectives as we kind of move along the train of questions. Yeah, this is a great talk. I very much appreciate getting to be here and listen to these ideas because, like Sal and Michael, this is definitely some of the highest and closest and just kind of fun, silly, serious ways in which you can engage with a person that you just don't get in all these other circles. You only get kind of one inflection. And if you kind of step outside of that and they're like, oh, I don't know how to think about that. I don't know how to feel about that. So this is really special and beautiful to me. So I appreciate it.
Respect, man. I'm really enjoying it too. We're learning lessons. We're upgrading the things. It's invaluable. So
good to hear people are liking the AI summary thing. And yeah, we'll see whether we can apply that for more people and how useful it actually is. And maybe we can have some sort of product at the end of it. And I could see there's a bit where there's a little bit of technology and then maybe some sort of consulting work you can be doing where you're applying this in interesting ways.
That would be legit. And it'd be cool too to also figure out how to eventually start a company around it where other people are trained in being able to do it and we could create some jobs. And there's going to be businesses around this stuff. So that's eventually going to be a thing that happens. And then that will be money to fund the movement. And yep, it's all available. It's not like I'm keeping any secrets out here. But if you want more, you can pay for it. And there are people who want more. So they'll hire me for coaching or consulting or whatever it is. Some people just want that face-to-face personal interaction, not just the videos and stuff. So
if someone's watching now and thinking about it, go hire David.
Hire me.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. It was very great hanging out with you. And I'm looking forward to next time.
Been great. Bye.
Thanks for coming. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Join the Patreon. Join the Facebook groups.
And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.